Roman is the biggest bad guy character in professional wrestling.
When's the last time you got laid?
French toast is the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Like, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Can we tell the truth about Dusty sooner or later?
Less people wanted that than are currently watching our stream.
And you know Vince, and you still think, are these true? It's like...
Welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
What do you mean I'm by myself? Tonight? Of all nights? Dude, they attacked Tony. I don't care you're in Disney. Oh shit. Oh, hello, everybody. And welcome to another edition of the Mark It Down podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, and clearly I am on my own tonight. Kind of sucks. It is what it is. People are apparently on vacations, but they are missing a hell of a night as AEW finally returned to Daly's Place after their amazing pay-per-view of Dynasty this past Sunday. And we actually kind of started in a very interesting way. We first started with the Elite initially arriving at Daly's Place earlier in the day. Now, we had one truck come around and outspilled Nicholas and Matthew Jackson along with Kazuchika Okada. And as they stepped up to the curb, a second truck came over, and it was revealed that Jack Perry would be joining them this evening. As they attempted to enter Daly's Place, AEW security tried to stop Perry. However, the EVPs quickly stepped in, saying that Perry was with them and he was their guest for the evening, overriding anything security may have tried. We then went to the ring, where we had Orange Cassidy attempt to come out to the ring, but he was quickly stopped by Trent Beretta, who, as we've found out, is a dick in real life. He attacked Orange from behind and kicked his ass all the way down the ramp to the ring, where he then grabbed a microphone and called for Chuck Taylor to come down and make his decision. Would he stand by Trent's side or stay with Orange Cassidy? Chuck eventually came down, and Trent started by apologizing to him for not doing this sooner, saying they brought Orange in to be their mascot, and instead that narcissist usurped both of them. They have defended him, fought with him, bled with him, and he has given them nothing in return. I think obviously alluding to the fact that Orange never gave Chuck a chance at his AEW International Championship, despite seemingly giving everyone fucking else a shot. Trent then asked Chuck to do the right thing and give the people what they want, and he backs up for a hug. Chuck takes a few steps forward, stops himself short, says, "You know, Trent, I always thought you were a piece of shit," and absolutely lays Trent out with the microphone, sending him out of the ring. Chuck then starts saying that he knows the AEW doctors won't clear him for a match in the ring, and that's fine because he doesn't want that. He instead wants a match in the parking lot here at Daly's Place, as him and Trent have had many times before. This was interesting. I wasn't really sure which way Chuck was going to go. It's nice to see him remain face for a while. Thank you, James, saying he would give me a hug no matter what. I appreciate it, except for the one time you punched me in the face, but that's besides the point. It's going to be fun watching Chuck versus Trent to see how long that goes. It's going to be interesting to see where Orange fits in the middle of all of this. And I think my biggest issue is that they're putting this street fight on fucking Rampage this Saturday, I believe, after I think it's the NBA playoffs. The NHL and the NBA playoffs are on right now, and both are on Turner Networks. I'm going to assume it's the NBA playoffs on Saturday, because usually ESPN gets the NHL playoffs. But either way, they're running a big doubleheader of Collision and Rampage all live, and I understand you want some big matches for a 3-hour show, but come on, this has been running on Dynamite the whole time, and now you're just going to stick this match on Rampage at God knows what hour, because they're not going live until after the game ends, which can be later than you expect. So I'm a little disappointed. This match is not going to go on until at least 10 o'clock on Saturday night. and I think it's going to get lost in the shuffle, which kind of sucks. James saying punching me in the face was an accident. I know it was an accident, but it's still funny, which is why I bring it up. Either way, I think that match is going to be really good. Trent and Chuck know how to put on a good street fight out there in the back lots of Daly's place, obviously. So it should be a really good match. And even if it does kind of get lost there at the end of, I was just at the end of Collision, but it's technically on Rampage. I'm sure people will go back and watch it. And plus, there's the Reddit sickos who will watch it anyway. James saying, I'm glad he's helping me out here. He's giving me something to bounce off of, even in the comments. It's weird because it feels like they're actively trying to get people to actually watch Rampage again. I just don't want to, LOL. I get that. Even when it's on its regular slot, it can be a chore to watch. I mean, it's Friday at 10. You probably just watched SmackDown. You really want to watch another hour of wrestling if you are that dedicated to it. Hence why I call the people who watch it sickos. And they call themselves that. It's not just me. And it's one of those shows where when you do watch it, it usually does deliver. Rampage does have good stuff on it, and it can be enjoyable. It's just where it is during the week is such a rough spot. Collision, too. People are busy. I, for one, I'm usually at the Mets on Saturday. I don't have time to watch Collision, despite the fact a lot of good stuff happens on that show. So I understand them not only building Rampage on a regular week-by-week basis, but for this big super show on Saturday, I understand them building that as well. James, again, the ratings for Rampage after Dynamite have been consistent. I'm getting worried they might try and pay TK to make Dynamite 3 hours. Maybe. I would hope not, because then we're not going to get started a lot later here on the Market Dump podcast, that's going to be Danny hours, and we already go late enough as it is. But we'll see. Navarro switching gears a little bit here, saying that he has beef with the refs. These refs feel are so bad at near falls. I always know by their swing that it is not a 3 count. Saying, first of all, Charles Robinson needs to have a refereeing school. That would be great. I'm a little surprised he doesn't. And the WWE refs are solid with their near falls. And I can understand that. I think WWE pretty much has it where most of the referees are incredibly uniform, and they are so interchangeable outside of some of the more famous ones like Lil Nate, Charles Robinson, that they have it where all their counts are kind of the same. Whereas in AEW, I feel like the refs, to an extent, are characters in and of themselves. We've seen Aubrey Edwards get involved in matches. Rick Knox is technically sort of kind of through BTE on the Young Bucks payroll. And they are also people who came up more or less through the independent system. So their style is not only different, but they're unique from one another. And I do kind of like that into a degree of when you watch other combat sports, boxing or UFC or other MMA promotions, the referees all have certain styles of how they like to call fights. You can look at a referee like Herb Dean in MMA. He mostly does UFC fights, where he was a former fighter, and he will let the fighters go a little bit longer than some of the other refs do when they're getting their ass handed to them, because he wants to give the fighter a chance to recover and come back. And then you have other referees who are much shorter on the trigger or quicker on the trigger rather, and they'll call a fight a lot faster than Herb will because they don't want the fighter to get hurt, in their opinion. So I think it adds a little character to the show. Now, you might not like that and understand, different strokes and all that, but it's a good point. It's something I hadn't really considered. I always knew the referees were a little bit different in terms of their personalities in AEW versus in WWE, where I think outside of maybe like Little Nation, like John Cone, you don't see a lot of Kyoto when he was there. You don't see a lot of referees have personality in the rings anymore, and that's not what the WWE wants, which is understandable, and it's what AEW wants, which is understandable. So if you like it, cool. If you don't, I understand that perfectly as well. Moving on to our next segment, we had a quick Jon Moxley backstage promo. He was facing Powerhouse Hobbs for his new IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. later in the evening. Mox actually gives Hobbs a lot of props. They've had a lot of encounters before, going all the way back to the Team Taz days, to borrow a phrase. And he mentions that only one mistake could end him tonight, not just for the match, but possibly his career, considering how strong Hobbs is, which, geez, that ended up being a little ominous. He also brings up the fact, that the Callis family has put a hit out on him and the other members of the BCC. So he will be expecting them to be around tonight. And even though he's probably going to go through hell, he feels like it is the only way to feel alive. Let's see. Back to the comments. Let's see. Navarro back with the refs. He's imagine that ref had a Charles like with those near falls. Oh, and the Ospreay Danielson match. Remind me who the ref was, if anybody remembers in that match. Honestly, all due respect to you, that match was so good, I didn't realize the referees count. I just honestly didn't. It wasn't something I was paying attention to. It was also a little so. And then James saying, I think New Japan fans got way too obsessed that Hobbs was challenging for the title. Sure, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure Dragoon's off somewhere ranting and raving that Hobbs got a title shot. It was a little out of the blue, but Moxley is a fighting champion, and they being the BCC are currently feuding with the Callis family, so it does make a little bit of sense. And the funny thing is, with the New Japan title, I've always found it interesting when it goes to different promotions. I'm always wondering who books it, because is it Tony Khan booking it with IWGP's or New Japan's permission? Is it New Japan picking the people who challenge for the title? I've always been very interested about that. So I thought Hobbs was a solid challenger, especially considering the circumstances, but I can see some people being like, A, who the hell is this guy? Or B, what did Hobbs do to earn a shot? Navarro saying, appreciate you. You made valid points about the refs. Thank you. I like I said, it's personal preference. Moving on. Next, we finally had our first match of the night. Actually, all that stuff took place in like the first 15 minutes. It was very quick. Actually, almost about as much time as I've taken somewhere on the show. So good job, Nick. We came to Swerve Strickland versus Kyle Fletcher for an AEW World Championship Eliminator match. This was pretty cool. I was expecting a good match out of these two guys, considering how good Fletcher has been every time he's been given the opportunity. And Swerve immediately going into being a fighting champion, something I think he said that he would do, and I'm kind of cool with. So I will jump into the action here. We had Swerve hit a swerve stomp on the apron, but that actually kind of rolled his ankle and tweaked it at least. Swerve, after shaking it off, sent Fletcher back inside the ring and went for a house call, but because of his ankle, he was a little slow on the step, and Fletcher was able to pick him out of midair and get in an ankle lock on that ankle until Swerve eventually made his way to the ropes. After a really cool back and forth, Fletcher is then, where they basically both countered tombstones for a while. Fletcher hits a spinning tombstone on Swerve. It kicks out, which prompts that carny piece of shit Don Callis, who was on commentary, to stand up and call for a play, putting up on 4 with his fingers and yelling out Melbourne, Melbourne, which was a play call apparently for Fletcher to go get a table. However, Fletcher went underneath the ring and was going to get the table, but decided against it. Fletcher then jumped back into the ring, and they him and Swerve began to battle, with Fletcher bringing Swerve up to the top rope. However, Swerve was able to gain the advantage up there, and he hit a swerve stomp onto Fletcher. And then after Fletcher kicked out of that, Swerve quickly hit a house call and was able to pick up the win, denying Fletcher a shot at the title. Like I said, these are two really good talents. This was a really good match. I missed the beginning of it a little bit because I was just finishing up making my dinner. So I did miss a small chunk of it. But I really enjoyed this match. Like I said, I'm not surprised with these two guys that ended up being good. And not only is this a nice way to bring Swerve out, although I thought he could have done a little more tonight, it being his coronation, right after Dynasty. I did enjoy the match. Nice to see him as a fighting champion. And it's also helping further the storyline as we see, Ospreay and Fletcher kind of butt heads a little bit with Don Callis. James, after Navarro brought up a good point about whether or not Hobbs should have faced Moxley, said that he thinks it should have been a title eliminator. I also think that would have been a decent idea, but like him, it's understandable you don't want to do two of those in one night. All right, let me just got to keep the voice lubricated here. I'm finally just getting my voice back, like, completely, and I do not want to blow it out a third week in a row. During the Strickland versus Fletcher match, though, we did cut in briefly to see the Elite and Jack Perry visiting with Tony Khan. We didn't necessarily know what it was about, but that would clearly come up later in the show. We then went to something I totally forgot to copy and paste in, which was a Thunder Rosa backstage interview. Let me just quickly type it. Interview. Things I do when I'm by myself. Anyway, phrasing. Renee asked Thunder about losing her shot at the AEW's Women's Championship. Her first shot at the AEW Women's Championship after she had to relinquish it, what was that, almost 2 years ago now, I think. And Thunder says, she's upset, but she's not going to make excuses. She could say that she didn't need Deonna Purrazzo getting into her business, and she could make excuses about Mariah May, but she won't, and she's proud of what she was able to accomplish even in a loss. However, at the mention of her name, Deonna Purrazzo comes over, and she asks Thunder why she's always saying her name, and the two women start jawing at each other before there's some pushing, and, some security comes out to separate the two. This then later led to the announcement of another match on Rampage that should not be on fucking Rampage. This match is too good to be sequestered to a post-10 o'clock third hour of a special collision. I am sorry, but that is 2 for 2 on matches that they made tonight that should not be on Rampage. This is not only going to be a really good match, but this is another feud they're building in and around the main event scene of the women's division, and instead it's getting sequestered to a very, very late hour on Saturday night. And that is disappointing. I'm sure people, James, are going to hunt this match down because it's going to be great, but little disappointed in its placement on the show on Saturday. But it is what it is. Okay, let's see. Next up, oh man, I forgot to copy and paste a bunch of shit. That's unfortunate. Oh no, there we go. Next up, we had Mina. Let me pronounce this right. Shirakawa. She is one of the Stardom talents that have been kind of in AEW the last couple of weeks. She's facing off against Anna Jay. This came about after Mina made the save for Mariah May last week following her match with Anna Jay, where she picked up the win and then Anna attacked her. So Mariah was obviously ringside with Mina. This was a good match. Yep, James with this frowny face because of the fact that women's match is going to be on Rampage. I'll get to the end of this match really quick, where after Mina hit a step-up enziguri, she went for what I believe was the Glamorizer, which was a cool reverse DDT. But Anna was able to counter it and lock in the Queen Slayer. However, Mina escapes and then uses what she's called the Glorious Combination, which is a pinning combination, which is really cool, to get the win. However, after the match, Mariah comes in to celebrate, once again carrying some champagne and 2 champagne flutes. But Anna attacks them both from behind, sending Mina into the corner and putting the Queen Slayer on Mariah. This prompts Timeless Toni Storm to come out and save her protege, driving off Anna. However, in Toni's haste, she left both her shoes and, more importantly, the AEW Women's Championship at the top of the ramp. And this gives Serena Deeb an opportunity to come out and call her shot, picking up the championship and telling the camera that she will be the next AEW Women's World Champion. Start with the match here. I enjoyed the match. Anna's looking a lot better. She did break her winning streak here at Daly's place, but I thought it was a good match. This was my first experience with Shirakawa. I liked her. She was very talented. I thought her and Anna worked together very well. So it was a very good women's match. Nice to not have this all the way down at the bottom of the show, and instead, the second match of the night. And I thought it was good placement for this match. As for what happened after, I do like we're getting a little side feud here. Again, Anna and Mariah, I'm sure, and Mina. I'm sure that will come to a head shortly. And Serena Deeb, it is nice to see her. Having her go up against Tony is going to be really cool. I do think that this is one of those maybe in-between feuds. I don't know if it gets all the way to Double or Nothing. It might, but either way, this does feel like a good defense for Tony and an eventual retention. But I'm sure they'll put on an absolute banger of a match. So I look forward to it when it happens. Said back into the comments here. I'll just bonk James from the outside. James saying, first of all, Anna Jay's day will come eventually. I agree with that. Every time I see her in the ring, she gets better and better. I think at a certain point, she will be a very good TBS champion, and then hopefully eventually an AEW Women's Championship. But that does seem to be her trajectory, similar to what Sky Blue did. And hopefully Sky eventually gets that championship as well. Although we'll see if friggin' Mercedes puts it in a stranglehold for a while. But we'll see how that happens. James also very hyped for Serena Deeb. And I do agree, it's going to be a weird feud, but it will be fun. Also, I agree with James as well on this. He wants to see Deeb win a title. Her and Willow would be very good. And also her versus Mercedes. That would be a lot of fun. Navarro, I see you in there commenting about the Casino Gauntlet match. I will get to that in a bit. So I will come back to those comments later, I promise. But for now, let's get to our next, women's segment. We did kind of stick them all together, which is fine. Which was Willow Nightingale's championship celebration. So after Stokely gave a quick introduction and Statlander recited a poem, which Stokely called 2 Packs of Ass, Willow comes out with Caprice Coleman for some reason on commentary rapping over her theme. However, and I haven't mentioned this yet, we couldn't hear a fucking word he said. There were audio issues all throughout the evening. I thought it was my app at first, but multiple people have said this. I believe Tony tweeted it out at some point that there were audio issues. I think it was funny enough, after the Young Bucks and Jack Perry left his office, which we'll get to in a minute. But I don't know what was up with their issues tonight. You'd think they would understand how the fuck to do this from Daly's place, considering they did it for 2 years almost. So very surprising, very disappointing. I could barely hear commentary all night. I certainly couldn't hear Caprice. Hearing promos was very difficult. It felt more like you were just hearing what was coming down from the speakers at the show as opposed to it coming through the television. So just a bad look all around. And I'm not a fan. James saying that Caprice rapping over, I guess, Willow's team was a Ring of Honor bit that he's done for a long time. And Ian's done it before, and it was great. I didn't know that, but hey, James, even if it was a Ring of Honor bit, I couldn't hear him, which is unfortunate. So that is what it is. Unfortunately, it all got drowned out. It all got drowned out, and it will be at best a footnote and at worst completely forgotten. Anyway, back to this promo. Stokely says that when all this started, he didn't like Willow, and Willow didn't like him. But after all they've been through, they have become great friends, and he is so happy to see Willow as TBS champion. Willow then takes the mic and gives a quick history lesson, saying in 2020, she was here in Jacksonville in the front row just trying to catch her first break. And then in 2022, she was in the ring with Tony Schiavone, being announced as All Elite. But now she is no longer a rookie. She is the new face of TBS. Mercedes Moné then interrupts and comes down. And Willow asks her the pretty obvious question. Why do you always interrupt me? You very clearly have something to say. Why don't you just say it? Mercedes, obviously very fakely, for lack of a better phrase, says that she came down to congratulate Willow and to let everyone see the next TBS championship. But really, she's down here to ask if Willow was that bitch who attacked her in the dark a few weeks ago. Willow denies it, and Statlander jumps in there saying that it clearly wasn't Willow. And Stokely jumps in and be like, I don't want to get in your women's business, but it was very clearly Julia Hart, right, guys? And everyone looks at Stoke and he goes back. Willow then asks Mercedes if she thinks that Willow intentionally injured her during their match in New Japan. Mercedes responds that Willow doesn't really want the answer to that question. She just wants to feel better about almost ending Mercedes' career and taking away the one true thing she loves in this world, which is wrestling. Willow responds that after her win over Mercedes, she went back to her hotel and looked at the belt and wondered if she could have actually beaten Mercedes at 100%. And that is a question she kept hearing in all the messages online and in the locker room. She then says that there's definitely an asterisk over her title or next to her title reign. But for this TBS championship, there is not an asterisk. And Willow wants Mercedes at 100% at Double or Nothing so she can show everyone she can beat Mercedes straight up. The two then have a quick stare down before Mercedes turns to leave. And when she does so, Statlander grabs her arm. This prompts Mercedes to think that it was Willow that grabbed her arm. And Mercedes just turns around and hauls off on Willow, just slapping her right across the face. This leads to a pull apart. Some refs get involved. And Mercedes eventually leaves. This was an interesting segment. The beginning was kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. The poem from Stat was a little weird. It was cute, but it was weird. Stokely was hilarious. He actually interjected at one point when Willow asked if Mercedes really thought Willow injured her on purpose, and Stokely started to say something. I didn't quite make out what it was, partially because he said it so quickly. Partially because of sound issues, and partially because Statlander covered his mouth and drove him all the way into the corner, which was really funny. But I enjoyed the confrontation between Mercedes and Willow. I enjoyed Willow's promo about like having an asterisk next to her title reign, as opposed, and needing to beat Mercedes straight up. I really did like that. We'll see where everything goes with the Statlander of it all. I know Danny from the pod was like, did Statlander turn on Willow yet? And I'm like, not yet, but that does seem to be building. And there is a little bit where Statlander doesn't look like she's helping Willow here. She caused Willow to just get absolutely bitch slapped. So I'm not sure if I can still say that. If I'm not supposed to, I'm sorry. But it's what happened. And I'm curious to see how that all plays out and what role Statlander ends up playing in all of this. I will briefly address a comment from Eric, which but fine. He predicts that Kenny is not retiring next week. He's getting beat up and sent away. Kenny Omega was announced for Dynamite next week in his hometown of Winnipeg. So Eric giving that prediction. Dude, who knows if Kenny could even get physical? It's a really good question. He had a very bad case of diverticulitis. Apparently, they caught it pretty late. There's been a lot of questions of whether or not he needs to have surgery. He's been trying to put it off. He might not be able to. This could just be a, look, guys, I'm going to be out for longer than I thought type of thing. I don't think it's a retirement. I don't think it's a beatdown. But I do think it's also kind of just to help drive numbers both to the arena and to the televisions. All right. After this, we quickly went backstage again as we caught the Elite and Jack Perry exiting Tony Khan's locker room. Marvez tries to get a word in with Perry, Okada, and Nicholas Jackson. And while they all ignore him, Matthew Jackson is willing to give him the time of day after Marvez practically begs him for the scoop. Matthew says that he cannot answer the question of whether or not Jack has been reinstated, but does say that Tony Khan has agreed to meet Jack Perry in the ring face-to-face later in the evening. Navarro jumping in saying, I'm liking this small venues for AEW. Very smart considering the decline of in-person crowds. And to be fair, they usually do run smaller venues. Even then, sometimes they don't fill. For example, I went to Dynamite in Bridgeport. This had to be a couple of years ago now. It was before Full Gear when it was in New Jersey. And there was barely anybody there. The entire it was almost as many people there who go see Fairfield University basketball games there, which is to say not fucking many. And that's if you're not counting the floor seats, but it was very empty. But then again, they had run Bridgeport a lot recently. So and sometimes it depends on the market. I think part of it has to do with just the fact that AEW, through a combination of factors that we've talked about here week after week on the show, just hasn't been as hot recently, whether it's the booking, the talent, AEW being just very good, or excuse me, WWE being very good right now. A whole culmination of factors has led to AEW cooling off a bit. And yeah, attendance has gone down a little bit, as have ratings a little bit, but AEW is still in a good spot. I do think running the smaller venues, though, is smarter because if you're not going to sell tickets, you might as well make it look like you have a full house, which is better. I will say this, though. They do need to lower ticket prices. I think that's another reason why they don't have as many people. I would like to say hello to You Know It, thanking me for showing up to work. Thank you, You Know It, for showing up here at the Market Down podcast. And James saying that he thinks AEW is heating up again. I agree. I think it's been looking really good recently. The product has been better ever since World End. I think we've been on an uptick. I do think it is going to be difficult to draw back people from WWE considering how good it's been. But, no more Rock, post-WrestleMania, that could dip a little and WWE could rise a little bit. I don't think it's not going to be like too drastic, I would imagine. That would be my guess. Giving me extra credit for knowing Fairfield's attendance numbers. I used to do games for the school. I used to kind of work the games for the school sometimes too on the radio, and then sometimes I would do other stuff. I've been going to those games since I was 5, so I have a pretty good idea of how many people go to those games. Let's see. Navarro saying that it was Dynasty and Ospreay versus Danielson that got him back, and he now wants to see Ospreay every week. And I do think Navarro, that Ospreay is somebody that AEW is going to build upon. I think he's going to be one of their new big stars. It's going to be guys like him. It's going to be Okada. It's going to be Swerve, who's obviously red hot and the champion. So it took them a minute with guys like Kenny being out with injury, with MJF leaving, because of injury and just quite frankly needing a fucking break. They had to build up new stars and some big free agent signings. And I think kind of the organic emergence of Swerve Strickland allowed them to build up all the way to returning to a level they were at almost around where an All Out was, which I think, or All In was, which I think was a start of a bit of a decline in everything. Chris Leclerc coming in with a report saying that Mercedes Moné is not cleared to compete until Double or Nothing. We've been debating on whether or not that was the case. If that is indeed the case, I'm not necessarily surprised. They've been trying to keep her around as best as they can, but it's been kind of awkward considering the fact that she hasn't gotten in the ring. If that is indeed the case, I do understand. She has gotten a little bit physical, but I also, if she's even at like 95% and she'll be 100% at Double or Nothing, why are you fucking risking it? You invested way too much money in her, no pun intended, to have her, re-aggravate her injury before, she even has her big match on a pay-per-view. So absolutely not worth it. And it's saying you got to ride the Swerve, at least for now. And exactly, Swerve is red hot right now. If there's a reason they put the strap on him, send him to the moon and let it keep going. Okay, next up, we come to the Casino Gauntlet match. This was nuts. This is my favorite thing on the card. It was a little confusing at first, but once I understood what was going on, I loved it. So here's the breakdown. The winner gets a shot at Roderick Strong and the International Championship at Double or Nothing. So you start with 2 guys in the ring, and then the next guy comes to the ring after an interval of time. So it kind of creates like a Royal Rumble / gauntlet match situation. But whoever gets the initial pinfall, or I guess submission, they didn't mention that, but whoever gets the first pinfall, no matter who's in the ring, what time it is, if everyone came out or not, they win. It could happen in the first 2 minutes. It could happen in the first 2 hours. It doesn't matter. It was chaos. It was awesome. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Chris also jumping in with a cool stat really quick. Anna wrestled her 100th match in AEW tonight. That's really cool. I did not know that. Perfect place for her to do it. Obviously, everything that happened with her and the Dark Order and Brody Lee. Jesus, $2 in Daly's place. I think that was actually pretty fitting for that to happen there. That's really cool. This match I absolutely loved. So we started off with Switchblade Jay White and Dante Martin. That was followed by Penta El Zero Miedo, Kyle O'Reilly, and then holy fucking shit, Will Ospreay joined, followed by Lance Archer, Commander, and Jay Lethal. Ospreay led to a bunch of really cool standoffs. So we had him versus Cool Kyle go up against each other a couple of times. Ospreay and Switchblade interacted for a bit. A lot of history there, obviously. Even some history with Archer and Will Ospreay, as Excalibur mentioned in New Japan. Just everything Ospreay did in this match was cool. Shocker. Even Commander had a really cool spot when he came out, and Archer was trying to throw somebody through a pair of tables. I want to say it was Dante Martin, but Commander came out, broke that up. So, and he tried to get him with a Hurricanrana. Archer countered, tried to power bomb, Commander through the tables, and instead Commander was able to pull off the Hurricanrana and send Archer to the outside through those aforementioned tables. We had a cool spot where Ospreay was able to counter Blade Runner into a Liger Bomb and then set up for the hidden blade on Jay White. And he probably would have had Jay White. However, Jay Lethal interrupted with his entrance, so they got into it. Ospreay and O'Reilly had a great exchange at the end where they were just dodging everything they threw at each other. Eventually, Will got the upper hand, hitting a running crossbody off the ropes that O'Reilly was able to kick out of. Ospreay then set up for the Tiger Driver 91. Now, for those of you who did not see the press conference after Double or Nothing, after Dynasty, Will said that he will be retiring that move after it seemingly injured Bryan Danielson at the end of the match. I think it was a shoulder injury, neck injury. They didn't really say. But Will doesn't want to use that move anymore at risk of injuring somebody else, especially Kyle, who has had neck issues in the past. However, when he realizes what he's doing, he hesitates, and this allows O'Reilly to get out of it and get Will on the floor. Cool Kyle then goes I think he was going for a submission, but it is interrupted when Commander comes running across the ropes and hits an SSP onto Kyle O'Reilly as Will Ospreay gets out of the way. We get a 1-2 on O'Reilly, but Will is able to recover, come in, absolutely nail Commander with a hidden blade, and pin him for the win and a shot at the International Championship at Double or Nothing. After the match, Roderick Strong and the Undisputed Kingdom came down to the ring, and Roddy was the only one who got in as the rest of the UK members flanked the outside, and Will and Roddy got into a stare down. So, as I said at the start of this was a really cool concept. I don't know who created it, where it came from. It seemed like even the announcers weren't entirely sure like what the hell was going on initially, but they could not stop ranting about it towards the end, and neither could I. There was just a lot of good wrestling in this match. You never know who was going to come out. When they were going to come out. And just who was going to interact with whom. I absolutely loved it. As for who won, the second Ospreay went in there, I was like, okay, if you're going to put Ospreay in this match, he's got to win, right? At minimum, he won't be like anywhere involved in the decision. Like, he'll be so far away. It is interesting that he won, though. I think they could let him win the international championship. They could have him be a little lenient, not go for another Tiger Driver, this time on Next Strong himself, Roderick Strong, and perhaps lose maybe with a little interference from the Undisputed Kingdom. So it's going to be an interesting way to have Will's first pinfall in AEW, but it is a possibility. Putting gold on Will does make sense. You look at a guy like Okada, he came in and got the Continental Championship within like 3 weeks. But I do think you could have Will losing and it furthering the storyline with the Tiger Driver. And then also, too, with Don Callis for him not wanting to hit that. We'll get to that in a bit. So, interesting decision. I'm looking forward to the feud, but we'll see how that all goes. Okay, let's get to the comments. I know Navarro had some earlier comments about this match, so I wanted to get into it. He started off by saying he thought it was awesome tonight. He preferred it. He would have preferred it to be eliminations until down to 2 guys. That would have been an interesting concept. Saying that they could have put over a lot of talent in the match by getting some pinfalls. And he doesn't mean like 2 people at the ring to have people come out the same way, just multiple pinfalls until you just get down to 1 person at the end. I think that's also an interesting concept for a match. I do think they did it this way because it allowed a lot of interesting talent into the match without people having to get pinned. Granted, you're right. You could put people over that way. You could set up your way. You could set up new feuds your way. It's so, like somebody gets a big upset. Say somebody pinned Jay White, then that starts that feud. But I also think this is a good way to protect people like Jay White and others who don't want to get pinned too often. And this way, only one guy has to eat a pin. Everyone else, while losing, it doesn't have to eat one. They still technically look strong, so to speak. And it's cool. So I do like your match as well. I do think that would be a very cool concept. But the way they did this tonight was awesome. Either way, I like this. Everybody just keeps coming out until somebody loses thing. That's a lot of fun. Okay, back down towards the newer comments here. Geez, there was a lot. I'm sorry. James saying, I love gimmick matches like this. It's where TNA excels. AEW should follow suit. TNA has had some wild matches, dude. Every time I watch that show, there's a new fucking match they create. And even Ring of Honor, they've experimented sometimes. When Fletcher won the Ring of Honor television championship at that pay-per-view a couple of shows ago, that was a match I had never seen before. Confused the fuck out of me. I still don't know what the rules were, but it was awesome. So, good. I thought it was really good stuff tonight. Making a joke saying MJF retired the headlock also because of the same reason. It's too dangerous. Can't say I blame him. Navarro saying it's too early for Swerve Ospreay. I agree, and therefore Will should win the title. And maybe I do think it. I think it could go both ways. It is still very early. We got plenty of time before Double or Nothing, so I'm not too concerned about talking about it right here, right now. All right. Next up, we had a Chris Jericho in-ring promo, and I literally couldn't care less. Seriously, he came out, new theme, new Tron that says the Learning Tree. And he put a fucking bumper sticker on the title, and look, he's one of the greats. I don't want to say he has go away heat with me right now, but I'm gonna say this every week until he does. The dude needs some time off and just some time away from us, and we need some time away from him. We do. We need to learn, or we need to remember how much we miss Chris Jericho. Everything he does right now is just annoying. It really is. Yeah, he's the king of reinvention, but he's currently reinvented himself into more of a jackass than he normally is. And it is just completely annoying. And admittedly, he did kind of lean into that a little bit tonight. For example, he started his promo by saying that FTW no longer stands for F the world or forget the world, but it stands for the world championship, because he did all this for us and with the help of us, and then he clearly got booed for that. He then thanked Terry Funk, the god of pro wrestling, saying it was him who was Terry who told him to help teach the next generation, which has led to Jericho becoming the learning tree. He finally thanks Hook for a great match, but says Hook still has much to learn, like getting rid of the dead weight, such as Taz and Shibata, and staying down when Jericho tells him to, instead of kicking out of 2 Judas effects and forcing Jericho to hit him with the bat. Sure. Jericho then says how excited he is for all the new wrestlers who are going to get up in the Jericho vortex and learn from him, which then prompts an interruption from Big Bill. And I'm going to stop here briefly just to see, like, this is one of these things where I'm saying he's intentionally being annoying, using what we have described as the Jericho vortex, we being, not just here at the podcast, but I think the internet wrestling community as a whole. Everybody who starts working with Jericho gets sucked into this vortex and they can't escape. Look at Ricky Starks. Look at Ricky Starks and Big Bill, which I thought was funny that Bill was the guy who came out here. Action Andretti. There are plenty of people. You're just like, what the hell? Why are they still feuding against Jericho? And now he's using this term against us. Anyway, Bill comes down and he says that he wishes to sit under the Jericho learning tree, calling Jericho the Socrates of pro wrestling, always willing to lend advice to less established guys like himself. Yes, a less established guy who was a former AEW World Tag Team Champion, which commentary mentions. Bill says there are a lot of guys in the back foaming at the mouth to sit under the learning tree, but he knows, deep down, Jericho knows that he is the best fit to do so. Jericho says that he will keep an eye on Big Bill, and Bill says he will prove it to him, and then they all walk off, and then Jericho thanks everybody and good night. And the promo was whatever. Again, he's intentionally annoying us to get heat, and for me, it's annoying me to the point where I just want him to go away. Not forever, and he doesn't need to retire. I do still think Jericho has a lot to offer, both in the ring and frankly out of the ring. Outside of kayfabe, he is still really smart. Like, he knows wrestling, he knows the business. Good guy to have around. But he just needs some time off. As you know, it joked, go start a rock band. Or at least go tour with your rock band. Like, geez. Like, get written out. Do like a fucking 4 months tour or something. And go on vacation. Just go chill. Go see Washington, D.C. again. Maybe not. But go away just for a little bit. And when you come back and everyone's like, oh, fuck, it's Jericho, everyone's going to be really happy to see you. And then, we'll boo or cheer you depending on what you're doing in the ring, and not just because we're really fucking sick of everything you're doing. It says, the learning tree is very creative. Did he steal it from WWE creative team? I don't know. It's funny. Like, I don't think it's not creative. I just think it's the way he's using it is purposely annoying. And like I said, it's on purpose. It's kind of a funny concept, but it's just pissing me off. It would have been better if I wasn't so annoyed at Jericho. Let's put it that way. Navarro saying, Big Bill was so bad with the pointing every 2 seconds and buried himself. You help wrestlers down here and bring them up, so let me learn from the tree. Dude, and that's something commentary brought up. He was a former AEW World Tag Team Champion. It's not like this guy is some scrub. He's been around the block. He's been in multiple companies. He's been champion, I think he was champion TNA. James would have to check me on that one. He at least competed for titles in TNA. He competed for titles in WWE, even though inexplicably they never won the tag titles. And he's been a champion here in AEW and competed for other ones. So he was a curious choice to be the guy to come up and be like, yeah, like I'm a guy all the way down here. Dude, you've been to the top of, some smaller mountains, but still the top of mountains before. Very, very interesting choice with Big Bill. I don't know where this is going. Now, do I think Big Bill with Jericho is a bad combination? Not necessarily. Maybe at a different time, but if you're starting this way where I'm already annoyed at Jericho, and then Bill comes out and, as Navarro says, basically buries himself for 2 minutes, I don't think this is a great start to perhaps a new faction for Jericho or whatever the hell they're doing. Again, just take a vacation, Chris. You deserve it. We deserve it. And, you come back, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and we'll be happy to see you again. All right. After this, we went backstage with that carny piece of shit, Don Callis, and two of his family members, Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Renee is trying to ask about their night tonight and how Will won. He's getting his title shot juxtaposed, there we go, to Kyle unfortunately losing his title shot this evening. But that carny piece of shit completely tramples all over her and saying that Will's win and new title shot is why he's a golden goose, but he admonishes Will for not going for the Tiger Driver 91 on Kyle O'Reilly. Will says that he's told Don that he's not going to use that move anymore after what happened to Brian. Plus, Kyle has had a broken neck in the past, and he doesn't want to do further damage to somebody he respects. Don says that he doesn't care if he's had 5 broken necks. He's got to land that move and do whatever it takes to win. But Kyle interjects, Kyle Fletcher, that is, saying, hey, Will won. You should take it easy on him. Don yells at Fletcher that he shouldn't be giving anyone advice after his loss tonight. And now he's got to go manage Hobbs to another win for the family and bring back more gold. Fletcher and Ospreay then look at each other with a little bit of a mixture of exasperation and annoyance as Callis leaves. Obviously, we are just building to the split between Ospreay and Fletcher and the Dodd Callis family. I'm completely blanking on their name in New Japan. United Empire. Yes, there we go. The split of United Empire away from Don Callis. Hopefully, Fletcher partner Davis can come back sooner than later, help even up the odds with the Don Callis family. Although I say that, there's really only Takeshita and Hobbs, so you don't really need Davis right now because Sammy Guevara is just gone. So the numbers are a little off. Maybe Don suckers one more person into the family to help make it a 3-on-3. But we'll see. And don't be surprised if we get Ospreay Takeshita 2 in the future, which we'll fuck. Speaking of Powerhouse Hobbs, he faced off against Jon Moxley for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. James mentioned earlier that some people were maybe a little disappointed at Hobbs getting this title shot. I personally, I'm cool with it. Like I said, I think given the specifics of the feud between the Don Callis family and the BCC and Moxley being a fighting champion, you can pretty quickly explain why this is happening. But I think the bigger thing is here. Look, this match was good. I think it started a little slow. And a lot of stuff on the outside. Moxley just kind of walking Hobbs around and around the outside using a 20 count until Hobbs got the advantage. Then we went to commercial. And when we came back very quickly on a move to the outside, Hobbs injured his knee. I don't know if he got thrown to the outside of the ring or hit with a tope or both, but Hobbs injured his knee. And he could barely put any weight back on it as he went into the ring. I don't know if this is a work or a shoot right now. It kind of looked like a shoot, especially because Mox pretty much just threw Hobbs into the corner, got up on the ropes, laid down some fists, hit a paradigm shift that Hobbs kicked out of, I guess to keep him strong, and then Hobbs topped out to the Bulldog choke. This felt very quick. It felt like a little bit of a change, maybe to what was going to happen, because I feel like there was probably going to be a better ending to this, but at least something a little bit longer. I thought they would have make Hobbs look a little bit stronger, kick out of a little bit more. And I'm really hoping Hobbs isn't hurt. If anybody has any information, I'm kind of on my own tonight. No producer boy, no James, no nothing. If anybody knows if Hobbs is actually hurt, it was just working, throw it in the chat. Cite your source, please. But I really hope this isn't an actual injury for Hobbs. Hobbs, I think, has been doing great work with the Don Callis family. And it would be, I think he's gained a lot of momentum since joining them. He's put on some great matches. That Will Hobbs match I thought was awesome. I mean, every Will Hobbs match is awesome, but I thought they had really good chemistry. And sorry, just cleaning up what's left of the losing my voice. But I think this would be a serious blow to Hobbs and his trajectory of late. So I really hope he's healthy. And I do think it throws a serious wrench in the plans of the Don Callis family as well. So this would suck. I wish Hobbs the best, and hopefully he is okay. All right, moving on real quickly. We went backstage to Katsuyori Shibata. He, using his speech-to-text, challenged Jericho to an FTW championship next week in Winnipeg under FTW rules, saying he's going to take the championship from Jericho after Jericho called him dead weight earlier, also saying he's going to chop down the learning tree. He then also commented Renee on her top, saying that the bejewels in her top made a heart, which he thought was nice. I like how he compliments Renee with the machine. I think it's so fucking funny. All right. Finally, we got to the final segment of the show, and which led to the big news of the night, where we saw Jack Perry and Tony Khan come face-to-face in the ring. Jack came down first, and he came out and said, first of all, he wanted to tell everyone he had some of the best nights of his life here in Jacksonville, which got a huge pop, and is actually probably very, very true. You know, Jack was a big part of everything that happened during the Daily's Place days after COVID hit. And, you know, aside of who the fuck is Griff Garrison, I think Jack had some really, really good matches there. And I'm sure him and Anna, I think they're still together. I'm sure that's where they met. So anyway, Jack then turns his attention to business and calls Tony Khan down to the ring, who obliges and comes out. Jack says that while him and Tony haven't always seen eye to eye, they have both only wanted what is best for AEW. He asks Tony to shake his hand, reinstate him, and continue to change the world here in AEW as they have done for almost the past 5 years now. Tony quickly shakes his hand, and they hug, but Jack immediately looks at the hard cam with the shit-eating grin of his. He has it down so bad. And then they break the embrace as Tony raises Jack's hand. They do the twirl a bit so the whole crowd can see him, but when they get back to the middle, Jack turns and hits Tony with an uppercut using the microphone, catching him right under the ribs and sending Tony to the canvas. The Elite come rushing down and back Jack up, and the Bucks go to help Tony Khan, each grabbing a hand and trying to help him up, and very subtly setting up for the EVP trigger. However, Okada then stops them, and he helps Tony up. And then Tony, kind of able to stand, looks at Okada, and Okada's like, looks at the Bucks and gives what we thought was initially 2 thumbs up. However, this was a signal for Matthew to get Tony Khan up and put him in the position for the Tombstone pile driver. Nicholas then climbs the ropes, and the Bucks hit what I think is the TK driver, which used to be the Meltzer driver. It's that or the Undertaker. I forget which one's which. I think this one, the one with the flip, is the TK driver, though. And they absolutely nail Tony Khan with it, leaving him essentially dead in the middle of the ring. The referee corps then immediately hits the ring. A lot of what the hells, why did you do that? How could you do that? It's being thrown around by the referee corps. And they back the Elite and Jack Perry up out of the ring as doctors come rushing in to attend to Tony Khan. Nicholas and Matthew start thanking the crowd and commenting to each other how it was such a good show tonight as Aubrey and Edge were just screaming at them to go backstage, and they finally do. As we went off the air, a large group of the locker room, mostly the men's locker room, came out to check on Tony. We saw some of the backstage people. We saw, I think I saw Alex Reynolds. I think I saw the captain, Sean Dean. I know I saw CD Christopher Daniels. I think I saw both members of Top Flight. But most importantly, Shad Kahn, Tony Khan's father, owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, came out to check on his son. Obviously, they were in Jacksonville, so Shad was there. And the draft is tomorrow, the NFL draft. So, at the WWE draft, I know it's coming up. The NFL draft starts tomorrow. So, just huge ending. And Shad's face was the last thing we saw as we went off the air. Look, I already know, Navarro said this before we even started the show here tonight. He did not like this. I, at least for now, love this segment. I thought this was perfectly executed. I think Tony was perfectly executed. I enjoyed it. But my big thing is this. This is the first time I believe Tony Khan has gotten physical on AEW television. I don't think he's ever taken a bump before, let alone, a fucking TK driver or pile driver. So this was pretty crazy in my opinion. So not only did we have Tony getting physical for the first time in almost 5 years of AEW television, we had Tony bring his father out for a storyline. If you don't think Tony isn't seriously invested in how this goes, I think that's all the proof you need. He did two things that I don't think he ever thought he would do when he started AEW, because he's not a guy who wants to be on screen. He's barely ever on television. His father, I don't think, has anything to do with this. And he not only got on screen tonight, he took a pile driver and asked his father to be on the show. Tony is 100% behind whatever the Bucks have going right now, whatever Jack Perry has going right now. Obviously, he's behind Okada. He threw so much money at him. But this, I think, is going to lead to a great angle. This is an absolutely crazy setup to whatever they've got going on right now. Do the Bucks now take power because Tony's going to be out for an extended period of time? Are they the heel authority figures that we've been questioning if AEW would ever see pretty much since it started? And Tony said, I'm not going to be an on-screen character. There are so many different ways they can go here. Is Jack officially back? It doesn't matter if Jack Perry is officially back in kayfabe because the Bucks now run the joint. So I thought was great, and I am so excited to see where it goes from here. I'm going to jump back into the comments. Navarro making a joke saying he's got to show up. Tony has to show up in a neck brace tomorrow for the NFL draft, and a bunch of people are going to be like, wait, what the hell? Or do you think they'll not show it? That's a good question. It'd be really funny if Tony kept kayfabe on NFL television / social media. It would be really, really funny. I know he's very involved with the Jaguars, especially probably during the draft process. He does a lot of numbers for them, which, again, I don't know how he does all this stuff. He runs the numbers for the Jags. He runs a lot of the numbers for their EPL team. And he's running AEW. The man, there's not enough hours in the day. He probably cloned himself. But it would be really, really funny if he actually did stay in kayfabe. Or just did be like, hey, guys, don't film me during the draft process. I'm not here because I'm in the hospital because the Bucks pile drive me last night. And then you're going to have Doug Peterson be like, wait, what the fuck is he talking about? Next up, hey, Dev, good to see you. Just me tonight, at least on the show. Got obviously a lot of people in the comments, so glad you're here. Navarro then saying, this will help get more eyes on the product. Or actually, I guess him showing up at the draft and neck brace. So many people watch the draft and Tony's dad being an owner, excuse me, maybe he talks to Goodell to promote it for a second after their draft pick. I doubt it. I don't think Roger, I don't think would promote it himself, but you could maybe see, it'd be really cool if they had an AEW wrestler announce a draft pick. Now, granted, it is in Detroit. They would have to get up there. I don't know where Friday's show is taking place from, whether it's also in Jacksonville or it is, or they're moving up closer to Winnipeg before their show next Wednesday. You could also have AEW roster members there at the draft party. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of crossover, but I don't think Goodell will get involved, especially because they currently have a licensing deal with WWE and their title belts. So online, you can get those WWE championships, except you can't get a Jaguars one, obviously. Initially, you could, and then they pulled it off the shelf. So it would be interesting. It's saying on the negative side of things, Vince is now dusting off his wrestling boots. Trust me, Vince ain't going nowhere near a wrestling ring for probably the rest of his life. I will say this, though, Navarro, I do think it will bring eyes to the product, even if they don't do it on NFL, because the fucking owner of the company got tombstoned. James saying, holy crap, Daddy Kahn. And yeah, James, I that's why I think this is such a big deal. The fact that he brought his father in for the first time in almost 5 years is huge for me. Navarro was saying this could be kind of like NWO versus WCW, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And that could be a good way of looking at it. You could have, I don't want the Elite to get too big. That's my thing. I think this is going to look more like an authority thing, except the authority are wrestlers and not necessarily, people who are part-time and in positions of actual power, because granted, the EVPs are a thing, like they are EVPs, but they don't have, I think, true power anymore. So, and that's the other thing. We don't have anyone who's the main challenger to them yet, because James is saying here real quickly, hopefully it's more like Austin versus Vince. And that could be true, except, Vince would wrestle every once in a while. The Bucks could wrestle every week if they wanted to, even though, their bodies are breaking down, so they definitely aren't going to. But Jack and Okada can wrestle a bit more than them. So I think it's going to be kind of an amalgamation of all of these things. They have a lot of different storylines they can draw upon. They can create, some new stuff as well. And I think it's going to be its own thing. We could go back and forth comparing it to things it could be, and in the future, go back and forth comparing it to things that have happened previously. But the way it's set up, I do think it's kind of going to be their own thing. You have the tag champs as the people in power, and I don't think that's something we've really ever seen before. James saying that he thinks it's Tony Khan showing up, or maybe he means Shad, or Tony Khan showing up on television, actually, I think he believes, is him realizing things aren't in a great place, and this is great break glass in case of emergency. I don't necessarily think it's that, because we were just saying things have been on an upswing, but I do think Tony is realizing that he isn't the hot thing right now, and he is attempting to get some of the people back who left for the hot thing, which I think currently is WWE, or at least has been recently. Dev coming in really hot, saying AEW is a joke, or he thinks it is. Well, I would firmly disagree, but I would at least ask you to explain why. I think AEW does great things. Their show on Sunday was absolutely amazing. I loved it top to bottom. People were saying it's one of the best pay-per-view AEW's put on ever. So I would vehemently disagree, but it's tough to, give counterpoints when I don't know why you think AEW is a joke. Finally, James, the Elite versus Kenny, Hangman, Ibushi, and who? Well, hopefully Kenny is able to get healthy. That's a good question. I think there are a lot of people the Bucks have screwed, so it will be interesting to see. trying to think off the top of my head. Because you could look at a guy like Eddie, but Eddie, I don't know if he maybe rises to that occasion. It almost maybe should be an AEW original. A bold move would be to say MJF. If you told me if it was another pillar like MJF or Darby, that could be a possibility. Darby obviously is hurt, but then again, none of those guys are there at the moment. So it would be kind of cool if it was eventually MJF who came back around and had to defend Tony Khan against, the people who, some of the people who made the company. And then James saying MJF is his pick. Yeah, I think my initial thought, I think MJF is the pick here. But all right, that was AEW Dynamite tonight. I'm just kind of ending things before I completely blow out the rest of my voice. Yes, MJF, great counter to Perry. And considering their history, I think it would be a great choice. As for Dynamite tonight, look, obviously I think a lot of the show is going to be marred by the audio issues. A lot of people who don't like AEW or think it is a joke are, I think, going to harp on this a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if it impacted certain things. Obviously, it impacted certain things throughout the show. It was very tough to hear promos. I could barely hear Mox during his promo earlier in the show. I couldn't hear Caprice's rap. I couldn't hear a lot of stuff tonight, which sucked. And I think it definitely did impact the show. I thought Swerve needed a little bit more tonight. He's coming back the conquering hero, and all he really got was his entrance and a good win. I would have liked a little bit of promo time from him. The guy deserved it. And while I understand they want to make him a fighting champion, coming back and having him just have a match it's not enough. It's just not enough for me. And obviously Powerhouse Hobbs, if he is indeed hurt, that is really, really unfortunate. And I think took away not only from what would have been a great match and cut it short, but I also think it is taking away from the upward momentum of what I think is going to be a great career from Hobbs. Do I think he will be able to recover from this? Yes, absolutely. The kid is so talented, but it's stopping him short at where he was right now is a really tough blow. Good things from this tonight. Obviously, the ending. I'm so excited to see where this goes. As I was just saying, I love that Casino Gauntlet match. It was absolute chaos. I want to see more of it. I saw people saying on the Reddit live thread that could maybe be their Royal Rumble. Now, I think that'd be a little much. Although maybe, as Navarro said, just do pinfalls the whole time. But it just that could make it an extended match as opposed to this sudden death format. But in a shorter term thing, that sudden death format was cool. It created not only chaos, but urgency in everybody, which led to more chaos. I really, really, really enjoyed that. And I think we got some good stuff out of the women tonight. Where at least first show after pay-per-view, kind of got to reset the board a little bit. We got a few more matches out of things, not just out on the women's side, but the men's side too. Granted, they sucked them both on fucking Rampage, but just reshuffling the board, getting the pieces reset, and I think we've set it well where we can restart the game from here. Just to finish up what's going on in the comments, we have Steven Zach. Hello, Steven. Nice for you. Thank you for joining us here at the Mark It Down podcast. He says in the long run, Okada will turn back face. Kenny, Hangman, Ibushi, MJF, and Joe. It's an interesting team. I don't know. There's a lot of time. It is going to be curious to see who ends up standing up to the elite. And I think it's also possible we have multiple iterations of teams stand up to them and fail. So I think that's possible. MJF, Navarro is saying he needs MJF back now. I would love him, but I don't know how hurt he was. He was really banged up, I think, at the end. So I think it's cool for now that he's out, but at a certain point, I do think AEW is going to need him back. Navarro also mentioning that he hates the tribalism between fans of the companies. I have complaints about both, and I have love for both. And I completely agree with you, dude. I may not be a guy who watches WWE every week, but I do keep up as best as I can. I don't love the way WWE wrestles. I don't love their style of wrestling, but I do think their promos tend to be better. I have a lot of problem with AEW. I've listed a lot here tonight, but I love their matches, and you can argue WWE is better on a weekly basis than AEW. AEW maybe has better pay-per-views than WWE, even though WWE has really stepped their game up recently under Triple H. Competition breeds better wrestling, and both of these shows are competing to be better than the other, and it has created such an awesome environment, not just between these two shows, but for other shows like TNA and other independents, around the country and around the world. I think, New Japan has gotten a little hurt from AEW because they keep losing stars to them, but at the same time, they run a show with them every year, a co-show, and we're introduced to a bunch of new wrestlers from their roster that, hey, maybe people will want to go see past that show. And you can, we saw Will Ospreay before he was signed to AEW come to AEW with the Rev Pro title. We've seen Triple H go over to Japan. We think we've seen him in Japan back when we tried to do NXT Japan. I don't know if that worked out, but we went over to Britain and he showed up at Evolve a few years back. People like wrestling is becoming cooler and cooler. I mean, we saw Shayna Baszler Bloodsport. We saw Shinsuke at Muda's retirement match. The rising tide lifts all ships, and I think we are seeing that right now. And as everyone's been saying, wrestling is cool again, and has re-entered the mainstream, and has not only helped the two big companies, but all the other companies as well. Eric coming in with a hot take: make Shad Khan the face of the leadership in AEW. James saying maybe you could do Shad and Tony like Vince versus Stephanie and Shane. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on what Shad wants to do. Shad is a very busy man. I don't know how much he wants to get involved in his son's little side project, but I do think could it be fun having Shad there? Perhaps, but I do think that the weight of him only being there this one time, and the fewer and the further times he's on the show, I think it adds more impact. There's a lot more weight to when he does make an appearance. So I don't know if I necessarily need that. Asking, can I see a New Japan show here in the States nowadays? Yes, there was one literally last weekend or something like that. I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was in Chicago. I don't know where you're located, but it was the Windy City show where both Jack Perry had an appearance there, and that is where Jon Moxley won the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So they've also had a lot of shows on the West Coast. That was while they were really trying to get New Japan strong established, and that didn't really go too great. And while depending on where you are, it might cost you a plane ticket, but at least it's within the States and not a flight over the Pacific Ocean. So there are New Japan shows here now, and they're sending a lot more talent for excursions and just to do shows and whatever. So, as I said, rising tide lifts all ships, and wrestling is better off today than it was, I think, 5 years ago. Do I think that is a direct result of AEW? Maybe. But AEW was a direct result of a lot of things. So there was a lot of dominoes that had to fall to get us back to get wrestling back to where it is now. Oh, it was a statement, not a question. Or I'm sorry. I'm reading quickly. I'm speaking quickly, and my brain is fried. So on that note, I would like to thank so much for everyone watching us here at the Mark It Down podcast. See, brain fried, can't talk. If you like what you saw tonight, as James would say, you could throw us a like. It lets us know if you like the content we're doing here, specifically on this episode. And then if you like other episodes, you like other episodes. And if you subscribe, you can catch us here every week for AEW Dynamite. We also do the Gym Pack Zone on Thursdays, although I don't believe it is happening this week. James is on vacation, which is why I'm by myself, blowing my voice out again. We're also trying to get going a little bit more with things like SmackDown, and we're trying to bring back Danny's Raw Fast Forwards. We will definitely do the WWE shows when something big happens. Obviously, this past Monday, Becky Lynch won the Raw Women's Championship, and we were able to cover that. So you can subscribe and catch all those shows along with any other pay-per-views and other things that we cover. We have a very interesting interview coming up. James did one the other day. I don't know if we want to reveal who it is just yet, but I will give you a hint. It does have to do with Detroit and doesn't have to do with the draft. But it's going to be very interesting. So be sure to subscribe. Keep a lookout for that interview in the coming days. If you'd like to follow us on our social media pages and you're here on YouTube, you can check the links in the description below. If you're on one of our other platforms, you can check us out on Twitter at marketdown_pod, on Instagram at marketdownpod. If you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and would like to follow us on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/marketdown3665. Obviously, very easy on Facebook to find us. Just search Marketdown Pod. And we are on TikTok, but I don't know what our ad is. I don't handle the TikTok. I'm too old for TikTok. So, all right. Thank you, Noah. I appreciate you giving me the support of a good job. I will catch you next time, and I'll catch everyone here next time at the Market Down Podcast. So I'm doing this in reverse, but thank you again for watching, and I should probably just get out of here. So have a good night, everyone. Let's go, Mets, and good job, Reggie Bush. Way to get your trophy back. Peace, everyone.